All right. So what is your name?
My name is Laura Kendall, Laura Kendall.
My cousin was one of the first people I interviewed, and 8 minutes in realized I had double hit the button.
Oh no!
You're gonna kill me, Pat. All right. So where do you live, and have you always lived here?
So I live in Boise, Idaho. It's the unceded territory of the Paiute and Bannock Indian tribes. I've not always lived here. So I moved here in October, and before that I lived in Nebraska. Yeah.
Nice. So what would you miss if you had to leave Boise tomorrow?
The weather is spectacular. I would miss being able to have access to the outdoors. I have grown up in Nebraska, so I lived in the plains and, in a city, and having mountains is incredible. I've never lived near mountains except when I lived in Los Angeles. So this is pretty exciting, and I would miss that a lot. And I would miss this arts community. In the time that I've been here, it is a close-knit and beautiful arts community, very supportive. We're involved in some really incredible work together right now, and I would hate to leave that.
So what is it that you do to earn your livelihood? What's your profession that you are?
So I am what's in a area or organization called arts administration. So I'm an executive director of the Morrison Center, Performing Arts Center. And so I went to school for theater, and then I got a master's degree in marketing, communication, and advertising. And I never knew this field actually existed. So it was a surprise to me, or didn't even think about it, that I could run a building or run a center. So primarily what we do is we bring in touring productions. So your favorite, music artist or Broadway show will come into town. We would load them in. They would set up the show and do the performance that night and then load them out. And the business model is based on ticket sales. So we pay either a percentage to the artist or flat fee, something along those lines, so that they can afford to come and perform, and they make a little money, and then we make them ticket sales. And that's usually how it works. And it works really, really well when you can have events.
So speaking of which, in one or two words, how would you describe the year 2020, and then why did you choose those one or two words?
Devastating and reckoning. So obviously devastating, because so many people have lost their livelihood and their lives due to two pandemics. Really, we've got the virus pandemic, and then we have racism as another pandemic that we're really starting to see. And so it's devastating. It's devastating for families. It's devastating for people of color, Black people in particular. And it's so 2020, I think, has been devastating, and I think we're in a reckoning where we're starting to learn, especially white people are learning and paying attention to and listening finally, I think, for the systems that we've created and how we can play a part, we have to, in dismantling a lot of the systemic racism and problems that we've been manifesting for 400 years that we've been benefiting from. So it is a reckoning. This moment is a reckoning. I think, certainly the pandemic has played into that reckoning, where we have to learn who are we without our jobs? Who are we without our, ability to go into any space that we want to go into? What does that mean for us as a community and as social creatures? And all of that has been taken away. So what does that mean? And I think hopefully we're using this moment to rebuild ourselves and rethink about how we come together as a community, who we want to be on the other side of this.
So describe the moment COVID-19 became real to you, and then what was going on inside of you emotionally when that moment happened.
So part of my job is to pay attention to the news, pay attention to what's going on that could affect the things that we have going on in the building. So I was paying attention in January. My mom came to visit, and I remember talking about it because she was going to go to Europe. And I said, ooh, I don't know. Maybe that's not a great idea for a trip. She's like, I'll be fine. I don't think we're going anywhere that we have to worry about. I was like, okay. And then I had a work trip in early February that I was also in the back of my mind thinking, is this good? Is this the thing to do? So I'm picking up some signals here that this could be a thing. This could be a problem. You know, at the end of February, after it had been in the news quite a lot, though nothing about the United States necessarily, I sent a note to my staff that said, you might be reading about this, hearing about this a lot in the news, and our patrons may wonder, what does this mean? Are we safe? And so I was telling box office staff and everybody, and I sent the note out, and I think everybody kind of was like, nobody is talking about this. What do you mean? And so we were kind of like, well, it could be a thing. Like, this could be something we really need to watch. And and then soon after that, the university, we were starting to get messages from the university about, you know, cleaning protocols and, you know, thinking about how we need to keep people safe if they come to campus and things like that. So they were starting, but I don't think anyone saw on the radar that we would be doing a complete shutdown. That certainly did not cross my mind. That certainly didn't cross my mind. I didn't think I would be working from home for over 4 months. That just did not even occur. So I know there was lots of conversations, and we were thinking about, okay, maybe we wear gloves. What does that look like when you come into the building? We started to get a few calls from people about, you know, are you still doing your event? Is this going to happen this weekend? And it hit mid-March, week of March 11, and we had quite a few events that week and quite a few events next week. And everything, I just remember, it's almost like a whole week happened in a month, because I felt like Monday was so far away and it was only like Wednesday, and I couldn't keep track of what was happening on what day. And I remember Wednesday was when the World Health Organization declared it a pandemic. And then, the NCAA canceled everything. Tom Hanks got it. You know, it was just like, what? Now it's real. And I remember Thursday, I canceled my trip to go back to Nebraska for my mom's 80th birthday. We canceled her birthday party. I knew I was going to have to work through the weekend because we had so many events that were just boom, boom, boom. Right after that, it was just like artists were calling and canceling and rescheduling. So that was kind of my life. And it was like nothing I've ever experienced. And I really hope to never have to experience that again, because what became very clear about my industry is the vulnerability that we have in bringing people together as our sole function. I mean, we bring joy into people's lives, and we bring hope and an experience that people get to spend together. And when that's gone and not possible, really is hard. And our artists, not only in our community, but across the country, we're losing contracts, losing livelihood, losing everything so quickly. And the whole world was falling apart, it felt like. And I just was like, how are we gonna make it through? How are people going to survive? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did your daily life change at first?
We moved. So we had just moved into a new house at the end of March, which was crazy. So it was a lot of, my life felt normal in some ways because I was unpacking and managing getting our house set up. But that slowly started to change when we were like the team, all of us were working, and we were on Zoom, and we were feeling really good about, you know, oh yeah, we've got this. This is no problem. And I got used to being in my little office, and I liked being able to just go out and sit outside for a break, or go talk to my husband for a little while, or play with the dogs. But then about 3 weeks in, there was a collective sort of hit the wall where I think I certainly felt a shift where this wasn't fun anymore. This was hard. No one knew when it was going to end. It was pretty dismal. And so I think that was my big adjustment, and just trying to keep people acknowledging working from home while we were super privileged to have jobs and to still be able to work and pay the bills and all of that. Like, we didn't have to worry about that. Extremely privileged place to be. But with that comes a lot of feelings around guilt and sorrow and anger and just everything, that you can't put those aside and go into work or log on to work and pretend none of that is there. It's all there. And so I really felt like my role was to just name it to my team and say, this is what's happening for me. I imagine it's all happening for you too. And let's just acknowledge what it is. And some days we're not going to be very productive. We're just not going to be very productive, and that's okay. And if you need to take a break and get outside and get some fresh air and then come back to it, that's fine. You need to do what you need to do for you, because none of us have been under this kind of stress. Yeah.
So now that we're about 100 days or so into this, what's your daily life like now?
Oh, I'm in a rhythm. So, I'll get up, get coffee, go sit in my office, log on. We have a 9 a.m. or I have a standing 9 a.m. Meeting with my executive team, my boss, and my peers, which is also really grounding because we can kind of hear from each other. And then it's literally a series of Zoom calls, one right after the other. I feel like I'm on video all the time. And I've also been afforded a really great opportunity. So I mentioned that I got to meet a lot of the arts groups. Some of them I knew before. Some of them I've really literally formed relationships through Zoom because I've never actually met them in person. So that's been amazing, and we've done some good work together. We've created a commissioning fund for our local artists. So we threw money in a pot together and really emphasized the individual artist, because organizations are privileged in this fact that many of them are 501c3s and they have access to grant money, and there's tools that they have, donors, those kinds of things. Your individual artist has nothing. They live off of the gig economy, and it is not easy. And so we work to give, it's not much money, but we awarded 69 artists $1,000 to respond to this time. And it's been really lovely to see the work that's come together and come out of it. I'm super excited about it. We called it the COVID Commissioning Fund, or COVID Commissioning Cultural Fund. And we hope that, this will be a historical opportunity to show how artists responded in this time. And they really do lead the way. I should say artists and makers, because we had some really cool applications and proposals around food and farming and just, kind of what makes Idaho special. And that's been really great. So this pause, this intermission, this whatever we want to call this last 100 days, whatever, has been really a great opportunity for me to sort of jump off of the wheel of constant doing events and looking at how I can contribute back to the community. How can I give back? How can I leverage my own privilege, not only working at a big institution, at a big university, but who I am in that world as well. So it was important.
So do you have any habits or routines that have come up since COVID that as we come through this era, that you would like to see stay in your life?
Yeah, I have tried to exercise more. So I try to do something that I move every day in some way. So that's been great. Actually, my husband and I, we really want to get outdoors more. And we did the first like Boise thing to do, which is hike Table Rock. So I think for most Boiseans, that's just like a nice walk. But for us, it was like a hike that literally took us a couple hours to do. So that I would love to see stay. And I would love to see my daily routine of, I've really had the luxury of getting to connect with family. I don't know if you've had this experience. A lot of people have had this experience of, I think, getting to reconnect with people who they haven't seen in a really long time. And so old college friends have a standing Zoom call that we get to do that has been really special. My friend Jessica and I have a standing, FaceTime call on Sundays, and that I hope doesn't end. My family who's spread out all over the United States lives, and I am lucky if I get a call into them once a month, has been great. Every other Sunday, in the evenings, we get together on a Zoom call and laugh and have a good time, and I'll have a glass of wine. So I hope that continues.
What's been the biggest challenge for you throughout the pandemic?
The biggest challenge for me, I think the biggest challenge for me during this pandemic has been trying to understand who I am in this moment, who I want to be, how I want to show up. And I think it's pulled the curtain back from a lot of things that I get to ignore. A lot of poverty, a lot of the instability of our economy, and just a lot of things that have really, I didn't have to look at or deal with or think about. And that's humbling. And it's at the same time, there's people who have to deal with this. This is the challenge of this time period is no different than their life challenge normally. And that, I think, was like, okay, I sit in a very privileged, amazing place that I'm grateful for. And so I think what's been challenging is just that, is really looking in my heart and trying to imagine a world that's better, that we don't go back to normal, that we really make a moment and an opportunity to shift who we are as human beings and what we value and what we care about.
How do you think your daily life's going to feel like 2 years from now?
I can't, 2 years from now, what's my life going to be like? I hope it's filled with friendships that I've made here, that I've worked to make, that have gotten me out of my comfort zone. So I hope that 2 years from now, I've just got a lot of great people and friends in Boise, that we have done as not only Boise State, the Morrison Center, as an arts community, that we have done the work to have a different, that we have demonstrated and have evidence that we've done the work around being an anti-racist organization, sector, community, that we look different. That's what I hope for in 2 years.
So in the challenges you see through your work or through your community, what excites you about solving them?
I'm really excited about solving, well, gosh, there's so many things. I'm excited about solving the economics of the event industry, basically. I'm really worried we're going to lose a lot of really great independent venues, music venues all across this country. I'm really worried. And without that, we don't have diversity in styles, in venues, in access. We just won't have that. It'll be supported by a couple of really big ones who control a lot already. And they have the money and the capacity to ride this out for many years. And our smaller, local, independent organizations don't have that. And so that's a problem we have to solve. And I'm ready, roll up my sleeves, ready to go.
So you had mentioned racial injustices that are coming to light. What was your reaction to the George Floyd incident? And then, well, how would you characterize the Boise community's response to the whole conversation that's emerged from that?
Yeah, that's so. When I learned of George Floyd's death, I think probably at the same point everybody did. We were aware of it as white people. I think we were aware of it on Memorial Day. The news helped us understand what happened, but I don't think it, I don't know how to say this. I don't think it hit us until that weekend when things had been building and building and building, and there was protesting in the streets, and it wasn't necessarily, some places were organized, some places weren't organized, but there was a uprising, a really important, significant uprising. And Monday was different for everybody. So the Monday after Memorial Day, I think was the we're in a space like we haven't seen before. And I don't know that, I mean, the fact that George Floyd's death was so cruel and so really hard to hear about, and if you watched it, hard to watch. But it's also one of many, right? And we're all sort of now hearing and understanding and learning and taking a step back and re-examining and looking at some lives that were lost and they did not need to be needlessly. And so I think it's interesting that we're in a place now where, the defunding the police, which it's not really defunding police. It's really about rethinking how police police their communities, but also what do they need to police? What are they policing? And are there better avenues to help people who need help? And I think one thing that for me as a white woman has been I've been very aware of and very eye-opening is what has the role of white women been in perpetuating this dangerous interaction between police and black men and women and families. And that for me is something that I need to look at. I think we need to start calling it out and taking a look at it and making sure that we are not complicit. Yeah.
So
did I answer the question? I don't know.
You answered very well.
Okay.
What one or two words describe how you feel about the next 5 years? So 5 years from now, when you think of 5 years from now, what one or two words would you use to describe that?
So in 5 years, I think my words would be, if I was going to describe 5 years from now, progress and justice.
What does that look like then?
I think it looks like in 5 years we have more people of color and Black women and men in leadership roles at the very highest levels of our government, of our military, of our every structure that we've created, that we have opened that up and have voices that can lead us towards more social justice. So that's what I see. And I would love to see our economy behave differently. And I don't know what that looks like or how to say that, but obviously this isn't working with so many people out of work and struggling. You know, there's healthcare that's tied to jobs that I think is really problematic for independent workers. And now we certainly see that, right? And people are losing their jobs and they're losing their healthcare. And so like wherever you stand on the political conversation with that, it definitely is quite apparent right now that it isn't working. So how do we fix that? So those are things that I think 5 years from now, we've really got to have it figured out.
So is there a question I should have asked you that I haven't yet?
No, I think those are all the questions. Those are really deep. Good grief. What's my favorite ice cream?
What is your favorite ice cream? Now you're making it.
I just discovered a new one. It's like an Irish coffee, chocolate, cream, delicious thing. I don't know what it is.
What about potatoes? What are your feelings about potatoes and fried potatoes?
Thank goodness I love potatoes and fried potatoes, because look where I am. 2 thumbs up.
So, what's I guess one question I would ask you, based on the world you're in, is what role does the arts play in the pandemic, but also the racial injustice conversation?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Thank you. Yeah, so the arts are an expression of our soul, right? It's an expression of who we are as human beings. And so in almost any time of conflict or pain or loss in the world on a massive scale, the arts are there in some shape or form to heal and to lead us into a new way of behaving, of being, of seeing the world in a new way, of imagining who we can be. So the arts are essential. And I think we get to this moment where everything was shutting down around the arts, that we forget that the artists and the arts are what we're turning to in our homes. It's when we turn on the television and we're watching any kind of show or anything. We're on YouTube and we're seeing these incredible performances and our favorite artists just doing amazing living room, concerts for us, because that's what they do. That's how we're healing. That's how we're reminding ourselves of what it feels like to be connected and to be a human being, and marvel at the beauty that a human being can create. So yeah, it's vitally important. And we as Americans and as a society discount that contribution so much. We don't invest in it. We don't pretend to find value to it. And I think that's troubling, and I think that's really scary. That many countries during this time are infusing artists and arts organizations and artists with dollars at a national, federal level. And that has not been the case for our of Americans in the United States, that has not been what we've done. Luckily, we've gotten some really amazing, foundations that have come together to infuse money back into the livelihood of artists, and that's been amazing. But there's so much more. I mean, we're the first to close and the last to open. So there's a lot of work to be done. So yeah, I mean, artists are so essential, and we aren't lifting them up like we should.
And then just a quick, because you told me before we get set up, what's the Morrison Center and what's its role in the state of Idaho?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Morrison Center is the Velma V. Morrison Center for the Performing Arts. It was started 35 years ago. A vision of Harry and Velma Morrison. We're a couple that love the arts. They love to go to New York City and wanted to bring that quality of touring artists to Boise. And so worked with Boise State 35 years ago to build this beautiful center, this 2,000 seat performing arts center that has a proscenium stage that can do Broadway, touring Broadway, any concert. It's really special. And right now, we're the biggest performing arts center in the state of Idaho. And for Boise, I think it really is a center of arts and culture life. And we do a lot of different things. We have a lot of plans to do a lot more, collaborating with our community and our community artists and other organizations in town. We're the home of the Boise Philharmonic and Ballet Idaho and Opera Idaho. And so, we really are a gathering space to celebrate the arts. So, yeah, we're hugely vital, but, we're taking a step back during this time so that, we can safely gather again whenever that is. So that's who the Morrison Center is, and I feel very privileged and honored to be the executive director and get a chance to, oversee this incredible building and staff. It really is a privilege.
So this is going to go on the internet.
Okay.
And the internet's kind of funny because people find interesting nuggets, and we don't know when someone's going to be watching this segment and hearing your voice. It may be years down the road, it might be weeks down the road. We just don't know. We don't know where they're going to be, right? But they're hearing you and they're understanding you. What message would you want to put into that time capsule for whoever's going to discover this video? What message would you want to share with them?
I think the message is to not take for granted your health, your family, your friends, and the simple ability to gather together and have a conversation in real time, sitting across from each other. Like, just don't take that for granted, because it can go so easily. And I think we're going to see it probably go again, as so many viruses and things that we can't control change our environment and our world around us. But don't lose and don't give up that the very basic human need to connect.
This is one bonus question is, what do you think the future of performing arts is going to look like?
Oh, man.
What are the options you think are viable, or the range of possibilities? This is my last question.
Performing arts, you talk about a reckoning. The performing arts and the arts in general, and as a sector, and as we've we had one model. You know, it is a really great way to bring people together. But boy, when ticket sales go away, you don't know who you are. And so I think a lot of this content has gone online. I think there's a lot of creativity with organizations realizing I can be more than just a building. So what does that mean and what does that look like? So I think 5 years from now, we will have a presence online. We will be in a virtual world. We will be accessible to a lot of different people who normally, you know, for whatever reason, you're in a hospital, you're at home, you can't get to a space, you can still be a part of the experience. And so I think the technology is really going to look at how do you make that experience where you're not just in a 2D experience where you're just watching a flat screen, but how can you feel like you're there? And so is that VR? What does that look like? But I think we'll have to figure that out because, you know, it may mean that we aren't able to gather at a moment's notice, but can you log in a different way and still have that feeling that you are in a communal space? I have no idea if that will come true or what that will look like, but I would love to see that happen.